Act as if everything will be okay in the next 24 hours. Not because you see it, not because you hear it, but because you know it. There is a power within you far greater than the noise outside of you. That power does not wait for evidence to appear before it believes. It believes, and then the evidence appears. To live this way is not to delude yourself, but to awaken to the truth that your outer world is always catching up to your inner assumption. Right now, your circumstances may scream lack, fear, or delay. But in the unseen realm, a shift has already begun. If you would only dare to assume that within the next 24 hours, something miraculous is being orchestrated on your behalf, then you will begin to feel it before you see it. And that is the key. The world is a mirror, faithfully reflecting the beliefs we secretly hold. So if you rise today with the quiet boldness of one who trusts that all will be well, even before it appears to be, then you start bending reality to your will. It is not arrogance, it is divine cooperation. You were never meant to be ruled by facts. You were designed to rule with imagination. Close your eyes for a moment and picture yourself smiling tomorrow, not because you forced the world to change, but because something unexpected unfolded. A phone call, an apology, a door opening, a need met without your striving. Can you hold to that image even when nothing suggests it's near? That is the test. That is the act of faith. People wait for signs. They wait for someone to confirm what they already feel deep down. But you don't need signs when you are the signal. You don't need permission when you are the authority. Walk around today as if your burden is about to be lifted, as if the tears you cried last night are about to be answered with joy, as if heaven has already moved on your behalf, because it has. But it cannot break through if you keep feeding your fears and validating the visible. The invisible is where the truth lives. And that truth says, it's already working out. Now, don't be concerned with how. That is not your job. Leave the how to the higher order of things. Your task is to dwell in the already done. When someone asks how you're doing, say with conviction, something good is happening for me today. When doubts arise, gently return to the feeling that the breakthrough is inevitable. You're not just hoping, you're acting as if. There's a difference. Hope waits. Faith moves, hope wishes. Faith knows. Today, let that knowing be your foundation. The next 24 hours carry infinite potential. Time is not your enemy, it is your canvas. And what you paint upon it with your attitude and assumption is what you will receive. So walk, speak, breathe as if the very thing that has burdened you will become the testimony that frees others. Speak over your situation not from desperation but from authority. Declare silently in your soul, it is well, and feel the peace rush in, not because something changed but because you did. This is not pretending, it's creating. When you live as if your miracle is already unfolding, the universe rearranges itself to match your conviction. You won't need to force anything. Doors will open with quiet ease. Conversations will shift. Solutions will rise like morning light, because you dared to believe before the facts arrive. So whatever you're facing right now, act as if in the next 24 hours, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, because the moment you truly assume it will, but now it already has, this very moment. That is the secret few dare to live by. You do not wait for the world to change before you decide to believe. You believe, and in that belief, the world has no choice but to shift in response. You step into the state where the thing you want is already yours, not because you see it, but because you feel it. That feeling becomes the key that unlocks every door you once thought was shut. You no longer chase the outcome, because you dwell in the reality where it already exists. This isn't about pretending or playing make-believe. This is about moving your consciousness into alignment with your desire, allowing the vibration of fulfillment to take hold of your entire being. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you become it. You stop trying to become rich, healed, loved, or secure. You are those things, in essence, long before they ever touch your physical life. And that's the power most people overlook. They keep praying for something to happen, but never feel as if it already has. They stay in the vibration of longing, and so they attract more to long for. But you, if you're willing, can shift now. You can enter the mental atmosphere where what you desire is already your reality. And in doing so, you collapse time. You move into a dimension where the thing you seek is no longer distant, it's present, it's personal, it's yours. The question is, can you feel it without seeing it? That's where the real power lies. If you need to see the bank account grow, the illness disappear, or the relationship restored before you believe, you are at the mercy of the visible. But the visible is only the final echo of what you believed long ago. If you want to change the future, you must change the feeling now. You must become the person who has already received. Feel what it feels like to wake up tomorrow relieved. Imagine walking into the next 24 hours with a quiet joy in your chest, knowing that all has worked out. How would you breathe? How would you walk? How would you speak if your desire had already manifested? Begin living in those answers, and you will no longer be hoping, you will be assuming. This inner shift is not passive, it is an act of spiritual authority. You are commanding reality to match your internal truth. The world cannot help but follow. It must, for it is only a shadow of your consciousness. The longer you hold to the feeling, the more real it becomes. People will call it coincidence, luck, or timing, but you will know the truth. You summoned it not by effort, but by alignment. You tuned into the frequency of fulfillment and became one with your vision. You wore the identity of the one who no longer begs, no longer fears, no longer doubts. You crossed the invisible line from lack to abundance, from despair to confidence, from waiting to receiving. If you were to spend this entire day assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, your inner world would become so saturated with the vibration of that reality that the outer world would have to mirror it. You would no longer worry about what might go wrong, because in your consciousness, everything is already going right. The people you're supposed to meet, the opportunities you're meant to receive, the healing that is already underway. These things start to flow effortlessly into your experience because you're no longer resisting them with doubt or delay. You are welcoming them with the clarity of faith and the calm of knowing. This practice becomes easier the more you do it. Like a muscle that grows stronger with each repetition, your ability to dwell in the unseen becomes natural. You stop asking, "What if it doesn't work?" and start declaring, "It has already worked." You stop rehearsing your failures and start embodying your breakthrough. The entire rhythm of your life changes. You no longer walk through time as a victim of circumstance, but as a conscious creator. You realize that your thoughts and feelings are not background noise. They are the script writers of your future. Each time your mind drifts toward worry, gently bring it back to remind yourself, this is not who I am anymore. You are no longer the one hoping something might change. You are the one living from the end and therefore causing the change. This is the difference between living life by accident and living life on purpose. You are not reacting, you are initiating. The assumption you hold when backed by emotion and persistence becomes reality, not because of chance, but because of law. And the law always responds to the inner world first. There is no power outside of you dictating the pace of your miracle. The only delay is the one you create by waiting instead of assuming. But the moment you assume, you accelerate. The moment you enter the feeling of your desire fulfilled, you shorten the distance between you and the manifestation. You're no longer trying to reach it, it's already with you. And once your inner world is convinced, the outer world rushes to comply. So right now, take your eyes off what is. Turn within. Close your eyes if you must. Let the old story fall away. Feel the outcome you desire. Own it in your spirit. Let it possess you so deeply that everything you do flows from it. When you walk, walk as someone who already received good news. When you speak, speak from the joy of your answered prayer. When you think, think from the state of it being done. Let your entire being radiate the energy of fulfillment and watch how quickly life mirrors back the truth you dared to assume. The outer world reflects your inner state, always, without exception. It does not reflect your wishes or your words alone, but the deep convictions and feelings you carry beneath the surface. Life is not happening to you, it is happening through you. Every event, every encounter, every condition that shows up in your experience is simply a mirror. And this mirror has no choice but to give you the image you have cast upon it. The world is not cruel or kind on its own. It is obedient. It obeys the blueprint etched within your consciousness. So if you look around and see lack, it is not life that is withholding, it is the reflection of a belief in lack. If your days feel heavy and your circumstances seem unfair, consider what you are holding inside. Have you accepted the idea that struggle is your destiny? That you must wait endlessly before something good arrives? Have you quietly entertained the thought that maybe you're not worthy of ease, of success, of love? These unspoken beliefs are not hidden from the mirror of life. The mirror reads what you carry silently and brings it forth in form. That is not punishment. That is precision. It is grace disguised as law, reminding you that you are not a victim of chance. You are the projector, and life is the screen. Once this truth settles into your heart, a sacred responsibility arises. You can no longer pretend to be at the mercy of your environment. You must look within, because it is within where the seeds are planted, and it is from those seeds that your reality blossoms. You may try to fix the outer world all you like, but if the inner soil is still saturated with fear or doubt, the harvest will always return the same. That's why so many struggle to change their lives through action alone. They chase, they fight, they hustle, yet the pattern repeats. Because the outer cannot transform until the inner has shifted. To change the reflection, you must change what is being reflected. You must become the person who already dwells in peace, even when chaos surrounds you. You must become the person who feels secure, even when the numbers in the bank account say otherwise. You must radiate love, even when others are cold. This is not about pretending. It's about choosing a higher truth. You are not defined by what your senses report. You are defined by what you accept and embody within. The senses are slow. They show you yesterday's beliefs. If you want to shape tomorrow, you must look past them and live in the state of the unseen. And it is not difficult once you begin. The moment you decide to hold a new image inside yourself, a new feeling, a new assumption, the world begins to bend, not instantly, but inevitably. Like the sun rising after a long night, your outer life begins to reflect the inner dawn. People will change, opportunities will appear, circumstances will rearrange, not because you pushed them to, but because the mirror cannot lie. When you shift, it must follow. It is not loyalty to you, it is loyalty to your inner state. But you must be honest. You must ask yourself what you are truly feeling most of the time, not what you say aloud, not what you post or affirm, but what you believe when you're alone. That belief is the prayer that never stops being answered. It is the script the world is following. So if you do not like the movie, don't beg the screen to change. Change the reel in the projector. Change the mental atmosphere you carry day and night. Begin to nurture thoughts that align with the life you desire. Speak to yourself as one who is already becoming. Move through your day as though something beautiful is on its way, because it is, the moment you believe it is. There is no trick, no ritual, no perfect phrase. It is the feeling that matters, the vibration, the state. You are always in a state, and the world reads it with unwavering precision. If your state is one of gratitude, you'll notice more to be grateful for. If your state is fear, you'll encounter more reasons to be afraid. It's not that life is against you, it's that it is trying to show you what you've planted. And if you don't like the harvest, you can sow again. That is the mercy of this truth. Nothing is fixed. Nothing is final. Every moment is a fresh opportunity to assume a new identity, to adopt a higher feeling, to believe a better truth. What you see around you is just the echo. You are the voice. You are the origin, the source. When you assume the inner state of peace, life begins to lose its harsh edges. When you walk in faith, even when the facts disagree, those facts eventually rearrange themselves. But if you continue to worship what you see, you keep reinforcing the very thing you want to escape. That's the great paradox. The world changes not by your demand of it, but by your detachment from it. You stop reacting, and instead, you start creating. You look at the storm, and instead of panicking, you remember, this is just the mirror catching up. I don't need to fear it. I don't need to fix it. I only need to remain still in the truth of who I am and what I have already received in consciousness. And as you hold that inner position, unwavering, the storm loses its power. The mirror clears. The reflection begins to show your new state. It is not magic, it is law. So whenever you're tempted to complain, to worry, to analyze endlessly, pause. Ask yourself, what is my state right now? Am I feeling from the end I desire, or am I feeling from lack? Am I trusting the process of the mirror, or am I trying to scratch the reflection without changing the face I'm making? The answer is always within. And so is the power. Once you master your inner world, the outer becomes obedient. Not because you fought it, but because you led it. Lead with your feeling. Lead with your assumption. Lead with the image of your fulfilled desire. The outer world has no choice but to follow. It was always following you. Time is not the gatekeeper of your miracle. Time is the canvas upon which your assumption paints reality. It does not determine when something will happen. Your consciousness does. The world has convinced you to believe in delays, in waiting, in long, drawn-out processes. But that is not truth. That is programming. You've been taught to say, eventually, one day, someday, but in the realm of spirit and imagination, there is only now. When you believe that something must take time, you have already postponed it in your mind. And if your mind accepts delay, life will mirror delay. Not because the thing you desire is far from you, but because you've placed it far from yourself in thought. Faith collapses time. It does not wait for the outer world to catch up. It moves inwardly to the place where what is desired already exists. When you assume it is already done, your body may still be standing in the now, but your consciousness lives in the end. And that end becomes your present, emotionally, spiritually, energetically. From that place, all things flow toward you because they are attracted by the vibration you now carry. You are no longer someone who needs it. You are the one who has it. That is how time bends. That is how what seemed impossible tomorrow becomes real today. The limitation is never in the clock. It is in the mind that believes in the clock's authority. If you continue to tell yourself that it will take weeks or months or years for your life to change, then so it will. Not because that is how long change requires, but because you have decided that is what you are allowed to receive. You have aligned with a delayed reality, and reality will gladly give you what you've accepted. But if you were to say boldly, in the next 24 hours something will shift, and believe it with your entire being. That belief would begin to reorder the unseen forces around you, not by might, not by sight, but by state. The universe is not bound by linear time. It responds to faith as if it were a magnet. And faith doesn't say, I will have it soon. Faith says it is already mine. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't wait for confirmation. It confirms itself. It walks forward as though the world has already delivered. That is the kind of inner posture that accelerates change. You stop asking when, and you begin being the one who has. You shift from waiting to receiving, from hoping to knowing. And in that shift, time loses its power to delay. It can no longer hold your blessing hostage because you have taken ownership of it internally. You were not designed to live in spiritual debt, always chasing what you think you lack. You were meant to live from overflow, from the awareness that all you need is already given. But this awareness must be practiced. Every time your mind drifts into maybe later, bring it back to now. Remind yourself that the version of you who already has what you desire is not waiting. They are living. They are grateful. They are calm. Step into their shoes. Think their thoughts. Feel their peace. Walk as they would walk. That is the path to bridging the unseen with the seen. Some will say, but it's not realistic to expect change in 24 hours. That is only true if you agree. But what is realistic other than a reflection of what has been believed by the majority? If you want a life that defies limits, you must stop consulting the rules written by people who never questioned them. You must be willing to assume a new truth, one that says time is a servant, not a master. Time bows to the authority of your assumption. It delivers what you feel to be true, not what you begged for. Do not measure your progress by clocks and calendars. Measure it by the conviction in your heart. If you truly feel that you are on the brink of breakthrough, then so you are. The feeling is not a fantasy. It is the seed of the manifestation. You cannot always see the roots growing beneath the soil, but the tree is still coming. In the same way, the changes you have assumed are already forming beneath the surface of your life. They are drawing near because you have dared to feel them now. Every great change happens first within. It starts with a shift in identity, a quiet decision to no longer wait for outer permission to feel what is already yours. You step into the inner atmosphere of wholeness, of healing, of abundance, and life responds not with resistance, but with recognition. It sees your assumption and begins to reflect it, perhaps subtly at first. A word, a sign, a conversation, then more obvious. A door opens, an obstacle disappears, a connection is made, and soon the external begins to look like the internal you've been faithfully holding. The one who understands this does not panic when the hours pass. They do not beg or plead for things to change. They trust that time is simply the means by which the unseen becomes visible. They walk in patience not because they are waiting, but because they are already fulfilled within. And that fulfillment shortens the gap between idea and experience. They become magnetic to solutions, to favor, to divine alignment. Why? Because they no longer dwell in the vibration of not yet. They dwell in the vibration of already. This is the mystery most overlooked. They think they must fight time, rush it, beg it to move faster. But time doesn't need to be rushed. It needs to be reimagined. It is not the enemy, it is the delivery system. And what it delivers depends on what you consistently assume. You don't have to control every minute, you only need to control your state. Stay in the feeling of it being done, and the minutes will serve you. The hours will unfold in your favor. The next day will surprise you, not because of chance, but because you lived today as if the answer had already arrived. That is the gift of faith. It changes your relationship with time. You no longer view it as a delay. You see it as a servant. You no longer fear that too much time has passed. You understand that time was waiting for your alignment. And now that you are aligned, it must respond. So walk forward into the next 24 hours, not as someone waiting for a miracle, but as someone who has already received one. Let the world catch up to your knowing. Let time yield to your state. Let the power within you rewrite the pace of your life. Imagination is your creative power, not a passive daydream, not a fleeting thought, but the very force that shapes the reality you live in. Everything you have ever experienced, whether joyful or painful, began first as a thought, most often one you repeated, felt, and accepted without question. That thought became your assumption, and that assumption eventually clothed itself in form. The outer world is nothing more than imagination made visible. So, if you desire change, genuine, lasting transformation, you must go first to the unseen realm where all things are born. You must dare to imagine a different outcome and not just wish for it, but feel it as though it is already here. To use imagination as creative power is not to merely picture something for a few seconds and then move on. It is to dwell there, to live from the end, to construct a world within yourself so vivid, so alive, that the outer world has no choice but to conform. Imagination is not a weak substitute for action. It is the blueprint from which all action flows. When you imagine correctly, from the feeling of the wish fulfilled, your steps begin to align effortlessly. Life starts bringing you opportunities, people, and ideas that match your vision, not because you forced it, but because you held to the unseen with conviction. Think of the mind as fertile soil. Whatever image you plant, especially one backed by strong emotion, takes root and begins to grow. You may not see the sprout immediately, but beneath the surface, the process has begun. So if you continually imagine failure, lack, rejection, or delay, then those seeds grow, not because life is cruel, but because life is obedient. It does not ask whether you planted that seed on purpose. It only knows how to respond to the impression made. But if you begin to imagine a life where peace, abundance, and joy are already present, and you feel the reality of that within yourself, then you have redirected the current of your destiny. The key is persistence. One imagined scene repeated with faith is more powerful than 1,000 vague wishes. Choose a scene that implies your desire is already fulfilled. It may be something simple, someone congratulating you, you signing a contract, seeing a message of good news, waking up in a beautiful space, or laughing with peace in your heart. Whatever the image, make it natural. Make it believable to your soul. And most importantly, make it feel done. Not in progress, not on the way, done. As you return to this scene often, especially when the mind is soft and receptive, like before sleep or in quiet moments, you impress it upon the subconscious, and the subconscious, being the builder of your world, begins to arrange the necessary steps to match your inner vision. It reaches into the lives of others. It alters circumstances. It opens paths you did not even know existed. That is not fantasy. That is law. You do not have to know how it will happen. You only need to stay loyal to the feeling that it has already happened. So many people use their imagination destructively. They rehearse worst-case scenarios. They imagine being rejected, failing, losing. They call it preparing for reality, but they are really just programming the world to reflect their fear. And when those things happen, they say, I knew it. Of course they did. They created it. But if you reverse the process and imagine best-case outcomes, miracles, favor, and peace, life must eventually bow to your vision, not because you manipulated it, but because you became one with it. You must learn to trust your inner world more than the outer one. The outer is slow, delayed, and always behind. It only shows you the past. But imagination is now. Imagination is the origin of everything that is to come. So when you say, I'll believe it when I see it. You delay the very thing you want. Instead say, I'll see it because I believe it, and believe it through imagination. Close your eyes and create. Walk through the life you desire in your mind. Feel the floor beneath your feet in your new home. Hear the laughter of your healed relationships. Smell the air of freedom, of success, of peace. Your senses do not have to wait for the outer world to catch up. You can train them now to experience what your soul already knows is yours. This kind of imagining is not escapism. It is alignment. It is communion with the divine, with the higher self that knows you were never meant to struggle endlessly, to fear constantly, or to settle for less. You were given this gift of inner vision so you could shape your world, not be shaped by it. When you imagine, you are using the same creative force that brought the universe into existence. That is how powerful your mind is. You don't have to wait for others to believe in you. You don't have to wait for external conditions to line up. You can go within and build the world you desire, and the outer world will follow. There may be moments when doubt creeps in, when the facts seem loud and the vision feels distant. That is when you must return to your imagination with even greater intensity. Not to force something, but to rest in it. To saturate your being with the feeling of what is already yours. You may not feel it perfectly at first, but that's okay. Keep returning, keep refining, keep believing. Over time, the feeling becomes natural, and once it feels natural, it becomes inevitable. Your imagination is not something to be used occasionally. It is the foundation of your life. Every day you are imagining something, consciously or unconsciously. You are always in the process of creating. The only question is, are you imagining on purpose or by habit? Take back the reins of your mind, guide it toward the life you want, not the one you fear. Use your inner power not to replay old wounds, but to rehearse new victories. Your imagination is sacred. Treat it as such, nurture it, protect it, use it wisely, and it will not fail you. You don't need permission to imagine, you don't need proof. All you need is willingness to feel it before you see it, to believe it before it's confirmed. And once you do, the world will mirror back the images you carried in silence, not as a reward, but as a reflection. You are not here to wait, you are here to create. And imagination is the beginning of everything. Let go of the how. Your faith is the bridge. The greatest mistake most people make when trying to bring their desires into being is obsessing over the method. They want to know every step, every detail, every timeline. They want the full plan revealed before they dare to believe it's possible. But the truth is, the method is not your responsibility. Your role is not to figure out how it will come to pass. It is to dwell in the knowing that it will. Go on your own. The how belongs to the unseen forces, the infinite intelligence, the divine orchestration that governs all things. When you try to take control of the process, you often delay what would have arrived with ease, because doubt lives in the how. Control is the disguise of fear, but faith lives in the end result. Faith says it is already done, even when logic cannot explain the path. The mind craves logic, sequence, structure. It wants to calculate the outcome based on what it sees, based on past experiences or current evidence. But creation does not follow logic, it follows belief. What you accept as true within, regardless of the method, becomes the command to the universe. So when you persist in a state of fulfillment, when you think, feel, and act as if the desire is already yours, life begins to move pieces you can't see. People you don't know start making decisions that will benefit you. Opportunities begin forming in silence. Situations start shifting, not because you micromanaged every detail, but because you released the need to control and trusted the unseen to do what it always does, respond. Letting go of the how is not laziness or denial, it is alignment. It is choosing to walk by faith, not by sight. When you feel from the end, when you live in the vibration of having already received, you don't care how it comes. You simply know it will. That knowing becomes your power. It becomes the energy that magnetizes the result to you. And as long as you remain in that inner state, the outer world cannot resist you. It is drawn to your certainty. The need to know the how comes from fear that it might not happen. It's a way of trying to guarantee the result. But the more you chase the how, the more you delay the result. Because your focus is now on absence, on uncertainty, on what hasn't happened. You think you're planning, but you're really worrying. You think you're preparing, but you're rehearsing failure. Real preparation is emotional, it's internal, it's embodying the feeling of already having it, so that when it arrives, it finds you already in harmony with it. When you release the how, you free yourself. You make space for grace. You invite the unexpected. You let life surprise you, and it will. It always does when you stop limiting it to your own understanding. The most beautiful outcomes are rarely the ones you plan. They are the ones that arrive when you surrender your timing and your strategy and lean completely into the feeling of trust. That trust builds a bridge between what is unseen and every step you take in faith brings the manifestation closer. This bridge called faith does not require signs. It does not demand confirmation. It walks forward even when the path is invisible. And each time you choose faith over fear, the bridge becomes stronger. You begin to feel a shift, maybe not outside right away, but inside. You no longer wake up anxious. You no longer need to monitor the world to see if it's changing. You simply know something is changing because you are no longer who you used to be. And that internal shift is everything. It is the evidence of things not yet seen. It is the beginning of the unfolding. Imagine a person building a home. They do not need to know how every pipe is laid or every beam is measured. They trust the blueprint, they trust the builder. In the same way, your imagination is the blueprint, your feelings are the instructions, and faith is the builder. When you dwell in the state of already mine, you have submitted your order to the architect of life. Let the builder do the work. Let the unseen take over. Your part is done the moment you believe. And this is not blind faith. This is deliberate creation. You are not waiting helplessly. You are not hoping weakly. You are standing boldly in the knowing that your world must rearrange to match your inner state. You have withdrawn your energy from panic, and you've placed it in peace. That peace is magnetic. It is creative. It opens doors you didn't know existed, because it operates on a higher frequency, one that your conscious mind may never fully grasp. You are not required to understand the mechanism, you are required to trust the promise. And the promise is this: what you feel with intensity and consistency will show up. Not maybe, not if you're lucky. It will. That is law. That is truth. So instead of worrying about how it will come, start preparing your mind for its arrival. Start feeling the joy of having it now. Start talking like someone who already received it. Walk through your day as someone whose prayer was already answered. That energy doesn't just shift your mood, it reshapes your path. And even when nothing seems to be moving, remind yourself, things are always moving in the unseen. Just because you cannot perceive them doesn't mean they are not unfolding. Your work is inner alignment. That is your only job. Stay faithful to the end you imagined, and let life handle the middle. The more you trust, the faster it comes. The more you release, the more it flows. The tighter you grip the how, the more you block what is trying to reach you. There is great power in releasing control, in saying, I don't need to know how, I just know it's done. That declaration is not weakness, it is mastery. Because the one who can trust without seeing is the one who creates what others call impossible. So today, stop wrestling with the details, lay them down, enter the feeling of completion, and watch how life begins to fill in the gaps you thought you had to figure out. Faith is the bridge. And when you walk across it, the how reveals itself along the way. Not before, never before. Only when you let go. Only when you trust enough to feel that what you seek is already yours.